So then how long did it take you to make that apple in the back, the quilt with the apple?
Oh, it took a while simply
Yeah.
because they're 1.5 inch squares. So they finish
Oh,
at 1 inch in the quilt. So it's a little hard to see from this angle. And I did it in sections of 100 squares at a time
right.
and then sewed it together. And
Yeah.
so literally it took, and I used it as an ender and leader project. I didn't actually just focus on it. So
Right.
it did take a little bit of time in order for it to actually come together.
Wow.
So yeah.
Good Lord.
I know.
I might try one day. Who knows?
Well,
I'm just gonna. Sorry.
Well, you know what? It's one of those things where if if you're a chain piecer when you're
Mhm.
quilting and you're looking for things to run through the sewing machine, then
Right.
if you have a bunch of little squares like that, because it's the same idea if you were making a postage stamp quilt, you would just be running little squares under the machine and you
Right.
make 4 patches and then 4 patches of 4 patches, and next thing you know, it's together.
Done.
So done.
According to Elaine, it's done.
Yeah, done.
We're
Done. It
done.
didn't take any time at all.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got Lorraine, Marianne, Pat, Sheila, Tia, and Yvonne. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a review of this week's Quilt Social posts. I'm Carla Canonico, publisher of Quilt Social, and we have the pleasure of visiting with Elaine Theriault of Crazy Quilter on a Bike. Hi, Elaine.
Hi.
Elaine wrote about machine embroidery this week and the importance of knowing your stabilizers. It's not always, something very easy to figure out. But anyways, let us know where you're from. And if you feel like you want to ask some questions, go ahead. And you can do that by clicking on the chat button. So Elaine, how are you on this Friday?
I'm great. I am
Good.
great. I mean, I always have fun when we're doing the post for Quilt Social, because it's, in some instances, it's a way of trying to figure out where exactly or how exactly you're going to do this. And I get questions from a lot of people with other things that I'm doing. And stabilizers is one of the, I'll say, the biggest things from anybody. And I thought, well, what better way than to explain some of the stabilizers than, to actually do some of my projects that needed to be done. So that's kind of how I did it. So yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, let's start. Like, what was the first thing that you talked about? You talked about Inspira stabilizers.
Yeah.
So you want to start from, let's say, the beginning of your posts this week.
Okay. So again, one of the things that people say is, what should I use for stabilizer, or should I even use a stabilizer? And so the very first thing I did was I only hooped a cotton fabric. So no stabilizer whatsoever. And I picked one of the designs that was, comes in the Ruby, the designer Ruby 90. And I just thought, okay, well, let's see what happens when I just put this in the hoop with no stabilizer. And it was like, okay, that does not look like, that does not look appropriate, because part of it, got pulled and everything like that. And so but it was more just as a visual, because I find that people are visual, including myself, we're visual learners. And unless we see something visual, I could tell you 100 times, put stabilizer in it. And until you actually see why, you're not going to pay attention to it. And so, and then I put in, different kinds of stabilizer. There was the Fusion Flex, I think it's called, which was fused to the back of it. And that really got rid of almost all the problems. And then I did put a Tearaway underneath and did it a third time so that we could see what happened. And that really stabilized the whole, the whole process. So it was really exciting to do. And I strongly encourage people to also sit down, with their embroidery machines, because it doesn't take that long to do, and just pick a design and say, what happens if I try this? What if? And people are afraid almost sometimes that they're like, I'm wasting stabilizer, I'm wasting fabric. And you're not, because you're learning. So that's really important. Yeah.
Yeah, I find practice always makes, better, let's say.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it is important to invest, in
Yeah.
the stabilizers in order to learn and all that. That's great.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
which is the first one that you want to talk about, just to go through what you talked about? So you had talked about the Tearaway, the Wash Away, the
Yeah.
magic one, like
Yeah.
what's all of that about?
All right. So, probably the first the most commonly used stabilizer, and we're talking machine embroidery, but this would also translate if you were just doing, let's say, applique on a traditional sewing machine, so not with embroidery, then Tearaway is probably the most commonly used stabilizer. And
Okay.
basically what happens with the Tearaway is it's meant to be removed once your project is finished. So it's there just temporarily. If your stitches are really dense, what's going to happen is the stitches will get pulled in and create puckering all around the edges. So whether applique or a satin stitch on traditional applique on a sewing machine, if you don't use a stabilizer, it will just pull in and it's not going to look pretty. So it's really, it's not just not nice. So, but when it's done, your idea is you're going to pull it away. So it tears away, and then you're okay. And there might be a few little pieces, depending if your design is really intricate. Sometimes some of it stays in and it'll break down over time, and that's okay. It's okay to leave it in. So, but that will solve a lot of problems. And sometimes people will put 2 layers of that. It comes in several different weights. It comes in, there's a light and there's a regular. So again, depending on the density of your design, the type of fabric you're designing or that you're using, and also if it's going in the hoop or it's being what we call floated underneath the hoop, will sort of dictate what is going to work the best for you. Okay.
Right. And is
yeah.
this Tearaway used on all fabrics, or are there particular fabrics that it works best on?
So it works the best, I would say, on woven fabrics. Okay. And I mean, you can use it on a lot of things, but woven is probably the most common place that you would see it. Okay. Cottons, you could use it on denim, any of that kind of stuff. But the idea is that the fabric itself is going to be dense enough to support the stitches once the stabilizer comes out.
Okay.
Okay. So a woven fabric.
So no knits.
No knits.
No knits, no stretch, no jersey types or fleece. How's fleece?
Fleece, you might get away with it, but again, what happens with fleece is that fleece has got some stretch to it. So if you've got a stretch happening in there, then it's not really supporting it. So I do like to use it on wovens mostly. Okay. And if I could just share my screen 1 second, I'm going to show a place where people can actually go and get a lot of this information, because they're going to say, well, okay, we heard what Elaine had to say and now she's gone and we still need information. So I'm going to show people where they can get.
Too bad we can't carry Elaine in our little pockets. Back pocket, Elaine.
I would never get any rest, so that's a good thing that's not going to happen. Okay, so what you can see here on my phone are 3 apps that Husqvarna Viking has put out. They've been out now for a couple of years, and this is sort of all part now of their My Sewnet ecosystem, which I've talked about on some of the blog posts in, I believe, last would be in September. Yeah, okay. But the one that we're looking at today is called the Joy OS Advisor. And this is also, this information in here is also built into some of the sewing machines. So depending on what machine you have, that's there. But anybody can access this information. So I'm opening it up. All right, and it comes up there with a whole list of different topics. So if I wanted to know a little bit more about some sewing projects or quilting or embroidery, sewing instructions, I can go in and I can have a look at those. But what we're going to look today is the stabilizer guide. So by clicking on that stabilizer guide, this is now going to give me the 4 main categories of stabilizer. So I have water soluble, specialty, tearaway, cutaway, and then there's our Inspira batting. I'm going to pop into the Tearaway just for the sake of what we're doing. And I can scroll this up and you can see that there are 7 different types of Inspira Tearaway stabilizers. Okay, so, well, how does that help me? Well, if I'm going to select the first one, what it is it tells me that it is a medium weight stabilizer for stable woven fabrics. So if my project is a woven fabric, this is probably the one that I want to use. And then by scrolling down, it's going to give me, what's the best of these applications, how to use it, and how to remove it is the very last step. So all of that information is right there. And I know now where I should be using the Tearaway. And then there are different instances where you may want to use a sticky Tearaway or a fusible Tearaway. So there are options that we have. And then, for instance, because we're also going to talk about water soluble today, but there are 4 different kinds of water soluble. And so again, if you wanted to know where to find that or what to use it for, all of that information is in there, and it can be used for, wovens and knits and stuff like that. So it's a super, super handy application to have access to.
Yes.
And honestly, I love it. And I refer to it a lot, because there are sometimes when you get something and you just think, I'm not sure, should I use this or this? Okay,
Right.
look in the app and it's going to tell me which one to use. So it is
Right.
really,
Now,
really
if I could just ask you to go over again where we can find that in information.
okay. So what you would do is
clear.
you would go to so if you are an Android, have an Android phone, you would go to the Play Store, where the same place where you download your apps, and you would simply search for Joy OS Advisor.
Good.
And then it just pops onto your phone. And
Great.
if you have the Apple phone, then you have to go to wherever you get your apps. And same thing, it's called the Joy OS Advisor. And then you could just install it on your phone. And you may need to open up a MySonet account. I'm not 100% sure, but that is a free account. You go to mysonet.com, you open it up, and then it gives you the access to the apps on the phone.
And it's all free. There's no
all
charge
free.
for it. Fantastic.
No charge for any of it. So,
Great.
and your machine does not have to be Wi-Fi connected. It literally is just an information app that is got all kinds of information besides the stabilizer guide in there. There's a ton more information in that application.
Great. Useful information. Terrific.
Very useful. Yeah. And I've been in this business for a long time, but I still use the information in the app, because I'm like, you know what, there are some days when you're trying to explain a product to somebody and you're like, okay, am I really telling them the right information? And you go in and you just double check. And so I use it quite frequently when I'm starting a project and go, am I really using the correct one?
Yeah.
So it's a confirmation. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, I think it's because there's so much information that in the end, it's like, yes. And sometimes you're not always using the same stabilizer all the time, like all of them this week. So for whatever, so you might forget and all that. So that's quite a given.
Yeah.
And okay, so which other one did you use? There was
okay.
The
Cutaway. So see,
Cutaway.
I'm wearing, oops, where's my shirt? I'm wearing my sweater that I made. So I decided, and I had been wanting to work. I don't usually work. Most of my embroidery, to be honest, is done on wovens, quilting cottons or whatnot. And it's rare that I go into the knit world. But I thought, you know what? I have knit items around the house that just screaming for embroidery. So let's see what we can do. Well, with a knit, and in the case of this particular one here, I mean, it is about, I don't know, it's about 3 inches tall or so. And the letters are quite, it's fairly like about 3 by 3 or so. If I had have used a tearaway on that, once the stitches or the stabilizer comes out, what's going to happen is those stitches are going to kind of collapse or roll up on each other, because there's nothing in the knit to really support the density of the stitches. So the sweater has been washed since I've done the embroidery on it, and it's perfectly flat, didn't do anything to it, but there is a little bit of the cutaway is left inside of this one, so that the cutaway is providing that support. Okay. And so that
because it has to stay there in order to keep it firm all the time.
Exactly. Because otherwise knits have a tendency to, kind of stretch and do all kinds of crazy things. So this was really good to put that in. But the other thing that I did, so now with the so just talk about cutaway first. So with the cutaway, it's, and again, if you look in the app, you'll see the category cutaway, and there are different types and different weights of cutaway. the idea of a cutaway is that it's to stay inside the project. So when you are finished, part of it remains in the project to provide that stability so that it looks nice on your garment without crazy. So you will use a pair of scissors, applique scissors, and very, very carefully cut the excess stabilizer away. You cannot rip it. It will not tear. Has to be cut. And the last thing you want to do is to cut your garment. So
Yes.
very carefully.
Very patiently, very carefully.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So that's what you will do with that. Okay. And I did cut, and you saw the picture online where I had actually gone in and, and I really just left a little line around it because I didn't want a great big hunk of cutaway, on underneath my sweater. So I really just went in and cut out some of the, the principal part of the big excess parts are cut away. But because it is a knit, it also has a nap on it. Okay. And this is the same for, let's say, t-shirts, definitely something like velvet or corduroy, or a fleece for sure. Anything with a nap on it. If you just start to stitch right on top of the fabric, the embroidery stitches are just literally going to sink right in. They're going to want to go and meet where the bobbin thread is on the bottom, and they're going to disappear within the nap of the garment. Like I said, even a knit, even this sweater is not a very thick sweater, but there was enough of a nap that it wanted to pull it in. So that's where I used what we call a topper, which would be it looks like saran wrap basically, but it is not. And it fits over top so that I can, my embroidery stitches are going to sit on top of the nap. And when I'm finished with that, I can simply remove it. And then it's easy enough to just give it a rinse or throw it in the washing machine, depending, but you do want to get rid of the excess, and then you're good to go. And the stitches are now sitting on top of the fabric. So
amazing.
It's, it's amazing when you do. And sorry, the other thing I forgot to mention is towels. If you're working with towels, toweling, oh my gosh, with all the little loops on the toweling, if you do not put a topper stabilizer on it, everything just literally sinks, and you are going to see nothing without it. It disappears. Or it's very unruly.
No point.
Yeah. I mean, it's not going to be sharp and clear. You will still see the embroidery, but you're not going to get that the crispness around the edges that you would get if you put the topper on it. So the topper is extremely important when working with something that has a nap on it. Absolutely. And the Inspira brand, the Inspira product is called Waterworks.
Right.
And it is a product that will just, you cut away the excess, or you can pull it away depending, and then just give it a rinse or wash it, and it's completely gone. It does not stay in the garment at all. Its job is just really to support the stitches on top of the nap
while it's being machine embroidered. Yeah. Now, just in case the word or the term nap in a fabric, just in case not everyone is aware of what that is, perhaps you just want to give a brief description of what a nap is in a fabric, just in case.
Okay. Yeah. Well, no, but that's a good point, because even, like I said, t-shirts, sometimes the embroidery we do on a t-shirt does not come out as nice as we would like, because the knit of a t-shirt actually has some depth to it. So if you think about cotton, quilting cotton, I'm not sure how many micromillimeters that would be, but it's very thin, and anything that you do with it really is sitting on top. But the minute that you get into a knit, which is a interwoven threads, there's some height or depth to those fibers. And so the minute that you have that, then the stitches will sink in. If you have corduroy, you know how corduroy's got a very texture with the little ribs and stuff. So same thing, it would sink in. Fleece, that fleece is sort of spongy, so it's going to sink into the sponginess of the fleece. So all of that is anything like that, you want to be using the topper. So it's, and sometimes you say, is it really necessary? Maybe not, but I try to use it now just as a standard part of my process. And like I said, for t-shirts as well, the one area that I have found is a little bit problematic with a t-shirt is if you are just doing a motif on it, usually the motif is strong enough on its own that it's going to be fine. But if you're getting into fine lettering, then the fine lettering will want to sink into the into the nap or the depth of the knit. And so putting a topper on it is going to give you a much cleaner finish by putting the topper on the knit, the t-shirt knit. So it's just, if it looks awful after you've done it, think, well, okay, what didn't I do properly? And in most cases, it would be the lack of a topper. And then I would have whatever kind of stabilizer I want on the bottom, whether it would be a tearaway or a cutaway, again, depending on the fabric I'm using.
Right.
Then, so I could have, in some instances, I may have a topper, my fabric, and 2 layers of stabilizer underneath. So I could have up to 3 layers of stabilizer, depending on the project I'm working with and the type of fabric that I'm doing, the density of the design, of course, as well.
Right.
So, yeah.
Might it be a good time to say, especially when maybe you're new to machine embroidery, that it's a great idea to keep your clothes, the clothes you might otherwise throw out or give away, whichever is the case, and use those later as practice tools.
Yeah.
Right?
You know, it's funny that you say that, because this sweater was on its way out the door. And I thought, no, you know what, I can do some embroidery on that. The other sweater that I mended, I mean, that
yes,
was,
which I want to talk about after.
Okay,
so,
because
yeah.
I have the sweater here. Because that was like, well, what do I do with it now? You know, and I repaired it with the embroidery machine. But my daughter was cleaning out her closet because she still had some clothes here. And she had left all these clothes, and I was, you know, packing them up to take them off to the, you know, to donate them. And I thought, no, this is a good pair of pants. I can do some embroidery on these pants. So I did keep a number of things that were, you know, slated to go out the door, and I kept them because I thought these are going to be perfect examples. And if I am not successful in my experiment, because I do experiments all the time, and sometimes my experiments work out really well, and some of them are like, okay, that didn't work, so we know what not to do next time. But by having that, you're not, you know, having to go out and find, you know, something else. But the one thing that I really have not been able to put my hands on is I would like a pair of denim pants that need repair, because I think you could do some amazing stuff, but I'm like, none of my denim pants need repair. So I'm looking for a pair.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, or like, even if like you know, like if you really don't have anything of your own that you can practice on, going to a thrift store is a good idea. It's fairly you know, cheap, you know, to buy it, that kind of thing. So so just a couple of hints as to what to do when you're new to machine embroidery. And I think that practice is always best on scraps or whatever. So that so these are
and you know, something else about that, Carla, because if you go to thrift stores today, and let's say that you're looking for a t-shirt, you say, okay, I'm gonna get a t-shirt, and I'm gonna do some embroidery on it. It's getting very hard to find a t-shirt that has no motif on the front of it, no printing, no logo, no nothing. But buy kids t-shirts, because they tend to be cheaper. You can buy an adult t-shirt and do different places on it, but use the back. Use the back, because you know what, you're really just looking for a sample to experiment with the different stabilizers. So use the back, cut out the part that you want to keep, and throw the rest of it away. And there you go, you've done your practicing. And if you are practicing, again, I always say, make notes and put them on a little label and pin it to it and say, I used it, or leave it even on the topper or the stabilizers underneath, so that you know for next time, oh gosh, look what happened when I had little lettering and big lettering. I needed it and didn't need it. And so it's written down. I do that all the time. I've spent my entire life doing that.
Yes. And it becomes a valuable library of reference. Your own library, your own experiment. Label everything. Absolutely. I agree 100%. This is really great. Thank you so much for that tip. Because it's often done in free motion quick quilting, you know, how you free motion you know, like a little square and you keep it or whatever, but that is great. And okay, so now we know what the topper is, so that's really good. What was the name again, the official name?
So it's the Inspira brand, and it's called Waterworks. I believe Waterworks Soluble Film, I believe is the full name, but Waterworks is the
and it is a topper, right? Okay. All right.
Yep.
So now what I really liked was your other sweater now, the peach one or yellow one, right?
Yep.
So you
Yep.
had holes in that one,
So
but you
I,
didn't want to throw it out because it is cashmere. Hello. How did that happen?
you know what? I don't know whether because it was on the front. So it's a very loose fitting sweater. And it's 100% cashmere. And it just broke my heart when I went to put it on one day and thought, oh my God, there's two little tiny, tiny holes in it. Yes, I probably could have got away with wearing it, but I just thought, what am I going to do? And so this sweater has sat for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And then when I was, coming up with topics for the blog post, I thought, you know what? I have the red sweater. I have this sweater. And so one of them is adding something to it, embellishing it. And the other one is repairing. Why don't I get it out? If nothing else, if it make a mess, I can wear it anyway. So what's the difference?
Yeah.
So
Perfect.
same thing. So, so there's the three little, the three
Flowers.
little motifs that got put on. And what was really nice about that was I found those motifs in the My Sonnet library, which I was able to access directly on the Designer Ruby 90 because it's connected to the Wi-Fi. So that was a bonus. And I was also able to search by the size of the motif because I wanted something small. I didn't, it's a very delicate sweater. I didn't want these great big motifs on it. So I was able to search for the size of the motif that I wanted and then brought them up, put them in the screen, did that little test out that you saw on the blog post. And once I found the one that I liked, then I just put it in the metal hoop. I used a cutaway stabilizer for the back. I also did the topper, the Waterworks topper for this because again, of the knit, I didn't want those stitches to sink in. And it worked like a charm. I was so excited. I cannot believe I fixed the sweater with the machine embroidery. So
this is really great. Yeah.
Yeah.
I find that machine embroidery is not just for machine embroidery on a jacket or things like that, but also repairs. That is really, really interesting. So it's good. How is it that the whole got, like, if you're going to machine embroider, so how does that fit in with the whole? How
Okay,
does it
so
cover the whole?
Okay, good. That's a really good point.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yep. Because it has sort of a center motif. Okay. I don't know if we can kind of see that up there. Oh gosh, I'm not good with my camera. But anyway, there's a little motif there. Okay. And so the very first one that I did, and again, I used the design positioning, which is a feature on the Husqvarna Viking machines, the embroidery machines, that will allow me to move the embroidery design around on the screen, and then it shows me where it actually fits in the embroidery hoop. So that was perfect. And so the first one that I did, I actually started, again, I wasn't thinking, but I'd never done it before, that the center of the flower would be where the hole was.
That's right.
In the sweater. That's what you would think. But
Right.
that was the wrong thing to do because it still left a tiny little hole because the needles kept coming into that center place.
Right.
I thought, okay, I'm not ripping it out. Let's just do it. And so the next time that I did it, I moved it so that one of the petals would cover the hole. So the stitches just literally went right over the hole. So they have enclosed the hole within the stitches.
Yes.
And
So it took advantage of the longer stitches and jumped right over.
And jumped right over it.
See, the illumination is just wonderful.
Yeah. So it was, again, a little bit of trial and error, but I got lucky because the motif was small that it didn't make any difference in it. And, if you look close, you can see that the center of one has got just a smidgen of a hole in there because of the way I did it. But I wasn't going to rip it out. It wasn't, it wasn't worth it to do that. But it just, and because there were only two holes and, sort of the rule, I don't even know what that rule is, but there's a rule out there. The rule of, is that what it's called? The rule of three? Okay.
Well, I don't know the official term, but anything in color or shape or anything like that within a design is always a rule of three. It's like a triangle. It's just appealing to the eye and that kind of thing. In anything you're going to do, whether it's quilting, graphics, anything.
Yeah. So I couldn't just do two. I covered the two holes and then I said, okay, where should the third one go based on the position of the first two where the holes were, and then positioned it and, and got the nice little triangle of
little trio.
the trio of the 3 shapes, and it worked out like a charm. So I was really, really excited about, about that. And that's where I thought, okay, I really want a pair of denim pants, or a pair of pants that have a hole in them. And I don't have any around. And I thought, I don't know if I can find them at the thrift store that's already got a hole, but I thought that would be another really good opportunity to do some machine embroidery where you're repairing a denim, or a jacket, or something that, had a bigger hole in it. So
yeah. Well, I had a pair of jeans a long time ago where they were all embroidered, machine embroidered all on the side. I wore them out so much that in the end they were just like starting to look threadbare. So I thought, okay, I think, Carly, you got to give these up. But I love them. I'd love to see that on a pair of jeans, and I'd be curious to see how you could work that, like a pair of jeans that is already made, on a machine, right? So I think you would have to remove the extension table and put the leg, like only on the smaller portion of.
Well, and you're also going to have to, because there are, I know, I'm not going to tell them what was coming, but I already know what machine you're going to be working on next. Yeah, we're not going to say, but there are, I believe there's going to be some mending capabilities on the other machine. So we're going to have a look at that. And so I am scouting now, and I'm going to have to maybe put a plea out on the blog to find out, like, has anybody got a pair of pants that need to be mended? Because I want to do some experimenting with it. So
you're looking for holes, or you're looking for threadbare?
Well, threadbare is a little bit harder to fix, simply because then there's not a good base to put your embroidery on. So you would have to almost put a second layer of fabric inside, so that when you did your embroidery, that there was actually something for the stitches to hold, because the stabilizer could potentially hold it, but if the fabric itself is pretty worn, then it may not be suitable to actually be repaired. So it may require another layer of lightweight fabric, let's say, inside, and then you can do your embroidery or your mending or whatever on top of it. So it really would just depend on the condition of it. But yeah.
So this is in January, so we're going to see what the machine is and all that. We're looking forward to it, Elaine.
I know. Well, there is going to be a mending component to it, but provided I can find a pair of pants. I've got to find the pant or jacket. So I'm kind of on the lookout for that, to see if I can find something that can be repaired and, and appropriate. But that's one, hopefully will be one of the things that we're going to cover next time. So
yes, of course. And anything else that you want to add, just to wrap it up? Any questions?
Well, and the other thing that we did on Friday, that I did on, today, I guess it was in today's post, was was resewing that snap back onto that jacket, because
that's right.
I am all about it. If I can use my sewing machine to do anything, I will do it over doing it by hand. And as much as I've done hand, I've sewn, I don't know how many buttons on in my life, but if I can sew them on by machine, it is so much more secure. That snap, because I'm wearing the jacket outside right now because it's cold, and that snap is so firmly in place. This is great. It's not starting to come out or anything that it would with hand stitching. So the idea is that, if you're not sure if you can do something by your machine, then check it out, or go into your dealer or search online and see if you can, because not only can you sew the button on using the particular feet that are recommended, but I just took the foot right off and just used the ankle, the ankle of the presser foot to hold the snap in place. And then I was good to go. And it was secure, super secure. Right. So anything is possible with it. And again, on that particular machine with the Joy OS Advisor in it, because it has the same, it has the same information as what's on the app, it's built right into the machine. And so I wanted to sew on a button. There's a button for that. I just pushed it and I was all set to go. It just said, place it underneath and start to sew. I didn't have to do anything.
How many seconds did that take? It's less than a minute, I'm assuming.
Probably took longer for the machine to turn on than it did to fix the snap.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Fantastic.
Fantastic. Honestly, it was brilliant. and
Good.
it's secure. I mean, that's just, so it really was. So I am trying to, if I see something here that needs to be mended or fixed or whatever, I'm like, no, okay, let's just get that machine out and figure out whether it can be embroidered or whether I
Right.
can use the darning stitches in it or button, repairs of buttons and stuff like that. But just use the machine, because why not? We
Why
have to.
not? And it's quick.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Well,
Exactly.
thank
So,
you, Elaine.
all
It's
right.
always a pleasure to have you on, and like all this information that we can work with. Thank you so very much for your time. And if you would like to, review the posts, you'll find them on quiltsocial.com. It's right on the homepage, and you just have to click on all of Elaine's wonderful posts. Elaine, is that it? I think so. We've reviewed everything.
I think that is it. I'm just, I always like to give people a little bit of homework before I leave. And so my homework
Get your
would be,
notepads out.
if you haven't downloaded the app yet, my phone is off there, but if you haven't downloaded that app, the Joy OS Advisor app, then you know what, you really, let me just put it up there just in case so people can see it. Oh my gosh, and of course you have to go back.
I'm going to do that after.
Okay, so
There it
there
is.
you go. So Joy OS
HBAPs.
Advisor app.
Yeah.
Okay. Honestly, go and download it, because there is a lot of information about stabilizers in there.
Good.
And really is an important app, I think, to have on your phone, for sure.
Great tool to have,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And do we have a question? I do not see the question.
All right. Hi, Sheila.
You're very welcome, Sheila. Thank you for joining us.
And Lorraine. Hi, Lorraine.
Lorraine, yes. Pat, you have a question. Can you see it by any chance?
Oh, yeah. Just a sec.
I don't see her question.
Oh, I didn't.
Oh,
see
it's
Pat.
a direct. Okay, it's a
Okay.
direct message. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Okay.
Terrific. Thank you, everyone. Lorraine, Margaret, Pat, Sheila, Tia, Yvonne, thank you so very, very much. If you like the presentation, give it a 2 thumbs up or 1 thumbs up, 2, 3. Okay, never mind. Yes, okay. Thank you so much, and enjoy your weekend.
All right.
You.
Thanks, Carla.
You're
All
very
right.
welcome, Elaine. Thank
Okay.
you. Bye,
All
everybody.
right. Bye-bye.
Stay on. Pat wants to ask something.
Pat, you want to ask something? I don't see.
Okay, I just unmuted myself on
Right.
the website where you have the 5-part series for the stabilizers. When I got to the end of the 4th stage, there's no link to go on to the next
To the
part.
5th? Okay,
Yes.
I can fix that.
Okay.
Yeah, and you know what? To see the 5th one, you can go back to the home page, and it will be the very first one at the very top of the list of posts for today.
Well, okay, I'll give that a
Okay.
try then as well.
Yeah,
Okay,
but I will have that fixed. Thank you very much for letting us know.
okay, thank you.
All
Okay,
right. Super.
thank
Have
you
a
for
good day.
joining
Bye
us.
now.
Thank you,
Okay.
Pat. Bye-bye.
Bye.